For those of you who are Twitter users and linked into the hockey community, there was a rather interesting tweet going around here recently. The user was asking others to list the 5 teams that would hypothetically be on their no-trade lists if they were indeed NHL players. And as you may have guessed, I couldn't help myself from participating. Therefore, it caused me to want to tackle this annual topic that always proves to be interesting. Now, before we get started, try and keep in mind that this is subjective. However, we will be going over various sources of data, including player polls, statistics, etc., etc. I'm definitely not trying to diss anyone's home city and or the team they support, but rather to hopefully induce discussion and to provide some entertainment. And with that, here are the top 6 worst cities for NHL players to live in of 2023. When we naturally think of cities that NHL players, or even ourselves hypothetically, would like to live in, well, most usually one of those factors is the weather, as destinations such as Florida, Tampa Bay, and even Las Vegas tend to be high on the list due to the fact that they're warm and can offer large amounts of sunshine year-round. However, when considering the fact that Buffalo receives on average 95.4 inches of snow per winter, well, it's about as far from tropical and warm as you can get. In fact, last December, for instance, the storms that hit the city claimed the lives of 39 people in Erie County alone. Considering where Buffalo is situated similarly to places like Detroit, lake effect snow is all the rage. And while it may seem almost logical that hockey players would prefer such a location, a poll taken by ESPN revealed quite the opposite. Back in 2019, ESPN conducted a player poll, and one of the questions happened to be which NHL city players dreaded visiting the most. Behind Winnipeg, which isn't a shocker, was Buffalo, where 34% acknowledged the fact that they didn't enjoy having to travel to Western New York. Buffalo always feels cold and dark. I have an 8-team no-trade list, and that's one of my cities on it. One player who could have been Matt Murray revealed. However, while taking it into consideration how much of a hockey town Buffalo is, how much the fan base supports its team, and the overall quality of life that residents report, it was hard to list it at number 1. As far as the team and ownership is concerned, in the post-cycle era, things have been slowly trending in the right direction. While players such as Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch are now leading the way, the future does indeed look brighter in Buffalo than before. Unfortunately, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, from the amount of players that have vacated Ohio's capital over the years, that it's far from a top destination. Matt Duchene, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky are just a handful of many players that have left Columbus over the years. And while one reason for that could have been former coach John Tortorella, the Jackets haven't exactly upgraded behind the bench, as CBJ decided to bring in Mike Babcock. The same coach that once bullied players such as Johan Franzen and Mitch Marner is now officially the bench boss. Another more practical reason, especially for players that have young families, is the fact that Columbus's crime rate has been skyrocketing. According to Numio, the site we used last year as well, the city has seen a scary increase in crime. In fact, in the last 3 years, there's been over a 70% rise. An article from NBC talks about the staggering increase when comparing the numbers to last year's in particular, as the rate was 50% higher. That was documented in April of this year. Besides a toxic coach and rising crime rate, there's also, at least in comparison to other cities, not a lot of fun things to do in Columbus either. This probably isn't too bad for players who are settled down and raising families, but for younger players especially, this can be a drawback. However, I do have to say that the atmosphere nationwide is pretty electric, and the cities seem to be pretty supportive when it comes to the Jackets. When I say this, I'm personally speaking from experience, as I've been to several CBJ games over the years and have always had a good experience. Speaking of crime rates, Chicago has been known for a hot minute as one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. According to IllinoisPolicy.org, the Windy City saw a spike in crime rate last year in comparison to years prior, as an overall increase has been evident within the last 5 years. While this may not be a reason that deters players, the overall state of the team itself just might. With the Kyle Beach controversy still hanging over the city, the Blackhawks bid farewell to the last of its dynasty players in Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. The Hawks, who finished third from the bottom last season in points, will presumably be a rebuilding team for years to come. However, there is some excitement in Chi-Town. That has to do with the fact that the Hawks recently drafted prodigy Connor Bedard. While this is one really good thing, while taking in all the other factors into account, the one good thing doesn't likely weigh out all the bad things. Some other unfavorable statistics for players would be a long commute time to the rink due to high traffic and a very high cost of living. The Arizona Coyotes, similarly to Chicago, have been riddled with controversial incidents over the years. From drafting Mitchell Miller to the John Chayka scandal to the Galchenyuk debacle, there's been plenty of controversy to go around. Not only has the team been at the forefront of a lot of NHL shenanigans, but also there's question marks surrounding the state of the team. Recently, there was disappointment in the desert due to the fact that local Tempe voters shot down the idea of a new arena for the Yotes entirely. As most of us know, for the first time last season, the team was subjected to playing in Mullet Arena, which is on the campus of Arizona State University. However, knowing that the team has no future in place would be a logical reason as to why players would want to avoid playing in Arizona altogether. Besides all of the reasons we've went over, there's also the fact that the team has managed to win just one playoff series within the last decade. And despite the fact that GM Bill Armstrong was able to draw on Jason Zucker, they're still far from even resembling a playoff team. This may have something to do with fans not showing up to support their team, but it also could be the inflated prices at Mullet Arena. Current Coyotes goaltender Karel Vejmelka disputed the NHL's claims that the arena was sold out. "I don't think a single game was sold out this year. It was mostly away fans too," he said. "The pricing is stupid. $160 for the cheapest ticket in a uni arena?" Similarly to Winnipeg, Calgary lately has become the city that nobody wants to play in. In a little more than a year now, we've witnessed Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, and Tyler Toffoli all leave Alberta for greener pastures. And the latest buzz has been the pending UFAs such as Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, and Michael Backlund that all reportedly don't intend to re-up with the Flames. Now, originally, this was thought to have been something to do with former head coach Daryl Sutter. However, after Sutter was fired, we haven't heard any positive news regarding the players' stances on extending with Calgary. Similarly to Columbus, Calgary isn't the most exciting city to live in. Known as Cowtown for a reason, Calgary is known for a robust farming culture. If you're super outdoorsy, it can be appealing. However, outside of that, there's not a lot to do here. And while Edmonton isn't too far away, there's a stark contrast between the two teams. The Oilers have been going somewhere as a team and have been winning postseason rounds on a consecutive basis. In comparison, the Flames didn't even make the playoffs last campaign. Just like Buffalo, the winters are also brutal. On average, Calgary receives snow at least 54 days each year, which amounts to around 50 inches in total. Top it off with having to play in a very old arena, and there's not a lot of reasons as to why Calgary would seem that appealing. And finally, we're at the pinnacle of undesirable. Now, don't get me wrong. The fans seem absolutely passionate in Winnipeg. Therefore, as far as the atmosphere is concerned in the home barn, the city has that going for it. Outside of that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of reasons why players would find it attractive to live in. Going back to the same poll we've referenced before, a couple of anonymous players spoke on why they dread going to Winnipeg the most. "Winnipeg, it's always cold," one player said. "Tough rink to play in. It's just dirty. You walk around the city and you feel like you need to wash your face after you go outside, so nothing about it is very exciting. Winnipeg is just depressing," another said. "You don't even want to leave the hotel to get a cup of coffee." Along with the bad vibes and tough weather is the crime rate. If comparing the crime rate of Calgary, for example, to Winnipeg, well, there's a severe contrast. In just about every category possible, Winnipeg has an either moderate or high rating. Apparently, the police have noticed and also taken note, stating that crime hasn't been this high in Manitoba since 2009. as the number of violent crimes reported was up nearly 24% last year in comparison to 2021. Also, there's a strong possibility that star goaltender Connor Hellebuyck could be added to the long list of players that have vacated Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele is presumably on the trade block as well, making for a rough season ahead for the Jets. In conclusion, I'd like to point out a poll that I invited you all to vote in. And as you can see, an overwhelming majority of you voted Winnipeg, which to most of us watching isn't a surprise. If you love this video and are new to the channel, I'd love it if you could subscribe. For those of you who consume my content on the regular, I'd like to invite you to support me by shopping with Liquid IV. Simply use my promo code AlyssaHope in all caps to receive 20% off your order and free shipping. You can also join my Patreon where plans start at just $1 a month and feature multiple perks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.